Good morning and welcome to this conversation for our report on the NFV ecosystem. Today I'm talking to Diego Lopez, and he works at Telefonica, where he is the head of technology exploration at the Network Innovation and Virtualization Directorate. Also, he is the chair of the steering committee at the NFV ISG at ETSI. Diego, good morning, and thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for you.
Okay, it's great to talk to you to get the perspective from an operator as well. The rest of the report focuses more on the vendor side. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about what is your role and your approach at Telefonica, just to give an introduction to our listeners.
I am in charge of a group of people inside the Telefonica organization related to research and development. And this group of people is working precisely on identifying new technologies and trying to evaluate and explore them in order to assess their applicability to the network infrastructures in use by Telefonica globally. In particular, 2 years ago, where all this common movement on NFV started, and so Telefonica participated from the beginning in the NFV movement, and I was first appointed as the chair of one of the working groups, the MANO, dedicated to management and operations, and afterwards I was appointed as chair of the technical steering committee. And this is what I do right now in respect to the standardization of NFVs, precisely trying to align and harmonize the work of the different working groups inside the NFV community.
Yeah, that's So it's a lot that you're doing on this front, and you're the right person to, I guess, to ask this question. There is a lot of interest in NFV, and you can say that there's a little bit of a hype surrounding it. Why is it so important for mobile operators?
Well, I would say that is the next paradigm shift when it comes to network. I would say my opinion is that the last one happened when the IP technology became widespread. It went out of the academic or research environment and became widespread in normal operations at all levels. Right now, NFV and SDN in general, network virtualization techniques promise to bring a completely change in the way we think about the networks, in the way in which we develop them, in the way in which we operate them, and in the way in which we conceive the service that we can provide. The idea is that we will be able of much more flexible deployments, much more efficient operation, and extremely and widen and be able to personalize the user experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's a big promise, and it's a very ambitious plan. But what is the status of the technology? Are the products, the solutions you see out there, are they mature enough? What is moving farther forward, faster and or slower?
Well, the technology, when NFV happened, when we coined the term NFV, by that moment some operators, some of our vendors were already working in related technologies. In one way or another, it was about making the functions of the network more software-based, more dealing with a more centralized or better homogeneous intelligence. So right now there are products that maybe they could not be called 100% pure NFV. Kosher NFV, in the sense that they are completely aligned with all the requirements we have put inside the NFV group, but they are rather close. And the important thing is that they are useful right now In fact, Telefonica engaged in a pilot for our fiber users in Brazil some time ago, and we plan to go into a full commercial service around the turn of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So technology is, I would say, is not 100, probably would not be called 100% compliance with the requirements, but is in a status in which is useful even for providing commercial service.
Yeah, so we're moving to commercialization, and it's not beyond proof of concept at this stage. What are the functions that you think are going to be virtualized first?
Well, that depends very much on I would say on three factors. First is about how much softwareized a certain function is already. There are functions that are extremely, very much associated with software from the beginning, and the only movement you have to make is to put them under the NFV orchestration. Think about, for example, in terms of mobile networks, a PCRF. Having a virtualized PCRF is something that should be reasonably straightforward, or even most of the elements of the EPC. There are some other functions that, well, will become harder to deal with, and technologically. Then is about the right moment of doing so, depending on the priorities of the operators, and in the moments in which a change or an update of the technology becomes economically or more feasible. Then I think that operators would address those services just because they become, let's say, low-hanging fruits, because they plan to go in that direction. And third and most important is about competition and market pressure. In the cases in which operators and in general network service providers see that the competitors are providing a differentiated service because they are more agile and they can reach better a certain community of users that are not reachable by normal procedures, probably that would force them to migrate as well. So, in summary, in general, EPC and functional, very well functionally described network elements, and on the other hand, whatever that is, we operators feel pressed to move towards.
So is the orchestration bit going to come a little bit later? The sort of where you put everything together, all the different functions. So functions first, and then orchestration, or you see that it's going to be happening at the same time?
Yeah, well, without a certain degree of orchestration, you will not be able to make NFV a reality. For sure, all the requirements that have been put on the orchestration elements in NFV are not reached yet. I mean, something that right now what we have are, well, version of orchestrators that show what can be done without going in that much. So they are not as much proactive, intelligent, and able to almost real-time response as we'd like them to be. But they are in the good position of making a reasonably good placement of the functions and interconnection of them to provide service.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that for operators, one of the drivers to virtualization is the requirements in the marketplace. So it's basically be able to compete, to be more agile to compete. Can you give me an example or two of what is that virtualization enables a mobile operator to do that it cannot do otherwise?
Well, one of the things that should be much easier, for example, would be related to infrastructure sharing. Much more flexible infrastructure sharing. So far, the attempts that I'm aware of on infrastructure sharing have been very much related to, well, we share purely the buildings and the power supplies and the cooling, and well, not that more. It is something that is thinkable is about a third entity that is constituted by several operators and that is running a certain amount of computing, storage, and network basic networking infrastructure, so you could run your services on top of them. So you could have a fair share of the infrastructure depending on the traffic and your demands. That could be one case. The other case is precisely about going much deeper in personalizing services. Right now, what you have is that, well, and the usual example you get normally for talking about quality of service and things like that. This is this brown, silver, and gold users, things like that. But think about somebody that only wants to, well, for example, make some kind of pay-as-you-go for broadband in a certain case, or that wants to have parental. You want for your kids a parental control that follows them, or that allows them to use your terminal, making them being under the parental control when they're using even your terminal. So, and this is something that currently is very difficult to achieve with normal infrastructure, and with network virtualization, NFV, even SDN would be enablers for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. So these are the advantages. But what are the challenges that an operator face as they try to virtualize their network?
Well, apart from the fact that you need an investment, this threshold that you have to cross, I think that this mostly is about two things, and it has more to deal with human minds than with the technology itself. When it's about how you conceive the network, and this is something that probably would affect even how networking is going to be taught at universities. I am old enough to remember when the structured programming, Pascal and C and all the stuff appeared in the market, and it was a change of the mindset. Then the object orientation, the Java and the rest appear, and that was another change of mindset. Networks have been always thought in terms of nodes and links, but for sure, a network is a graph, and you cannot change that. But the difference is whether you make it a very dense graph of different functions connected among them, building the service by aggregating parts of the graph, or you think about a very sparse graph with big nodes that are connecting to each other. So in the moment you have functions that you can move around, you have to change the way in which you think about how you build the network. And the second point is precisely about how you operate the network. That implies a huge change of procedures and how services are created, service activation and service maintenance is done inside an operators. Essentially, this, if you think about this, all of us, and that includes even myself, even that I have been exposed much more to the NFV. Very many people think about the NFV coming to a virtualized router, a virtualized firewall, virtualizing the same boxes we have. That implies that you will operate firewalls, routers, whatever. The idea is that NFV comes with the idea that no longer you will have a firewall, you will have the different functions you have inside the firewall, the filtering, and IDS, a DPI, whatever, would be independent, and you will be able to freely combine them. And you will have to be able to correctly operate them. And these are the real challenges. We have to change our mindset from the top level in which people conceive the network down to the people that with their hands-on manipulating the network and operating it.
Yeah, so it's a cultural thing in terms of how how you think about the network, but also how you operate internally, because that also is reflected in the cultural structure, organizational structure at operators as well. Isn't that a challenge too? Yeah.
Well, and for sure, there is a challenge of the transition. It's something that we cannot do it overnight.
Yeah.
So that there will be a period, and taking into account the size of the budget, it will be a long period in which there will be a necessary heterogeneity in the network.
Yeah.
That will be even I would say even a stronger challenge.
Yeah. Well, and I guess this is such a big change that you don't want it to happen overnight, even if you could, even if money were not an issue. But are you happy with the pace of progress you're seeing?
Well, that depends on who you ask. If you ask if you ask the researcher, no way. We should be much faster. If you ask the guy who's in charge of trying to coordinate this as the adoption of the technologies inside the company, I would say that yes. I mean, it's something that to think about it, we started taking all this NFV stuff seriously and in a coordinated way with other operators and vendors 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. We have managed to make a strong impact. The industry is moving in this direction. There is no major or minor vendor that is not addressing the virtualization and creating virtualization roadmaps. I would dare to say that there is no operator that is not considering to apply virtualization, if not all over their networks in certain points, because they see the advantage. And as I said before, we are witnessing the availability of products that probably are not ideal, but are good enough. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, one thing that is different is that there is a lot of reliance on open source software. You know, every vendor has a solution. Typically, they want to be compatible with that. From an operator point of view, are you comfortable to have open source software running at the core of your network?
First of all, a warning. I have been an open source developer for 20 years or so. Mm-hmm. So it's something that I am
somehow feel at home.
You know. And I have been running open source for core operations. I mean, in my previous positions, but it was the core of our business was running on top of open source. I don't see why not. I mean, mostly if you take into account that right now many operators are running without noticing big chunks of open source code in their networks. They are many of the vendors offer when it comes to, for example, when it comes to cloud, everybody is deploying OpenStack. But when it comes to security stacks, I would say 80, if not 100% of the vendors are deploying pieces of OpenSSL. And that's why the recent OpenSSL security hole was so serious, because it affected everything in all the networks. So the only point here is that we will be talking about open source that is known to be open source. But open source that doesn't mean out of maintenance, doesn't mean non-industrial, because open source, people tend to think in open source in terms of, this is something that whoever can deal with, can fiddle with, can do whatever they want. And nobody provides me a warranty. You can sign the same kind of maintenance contract that you can sign with a provider for a non-open source. You can sign it for open source. So the only thing, again, is a cultural change. Is about that you know that you have open source. Before you had the open source, now you will know that you have the open source. So, you have to sleep at night with that in your mind.
Now, we have for virtualization, you have the ETSI standard, which is more in terms of requirements for the industry, and then you have open source. What is the relationship between the two? It seems like it's two parallel streams of work.
Yes, but we are trying to. The truth is that there are many people in the NFV community that are contributing to the open source development, and we are proactively inside the ETSI NFV group. We are proactively engaging with the open source community as well. In particular, we have been contributing. How to say? We have been making contributions to the OpenStack community. Many of those contributions related mostly to something that was very important to us, that was the performance of the virtualized infrastructure from the beginning, because we were very much we're very much interested in this becoming a mainstream, are part of the current OpenStack blueprint. So there is a direct connection from the NFV community into the open source projects. We have started to contribute, vendors have started to contribute, operators have started to contribute, and what we are expecting, and this is part as well of the NFV activities, precisely running a continuous run of different proofs of concept, just to show that the products, either open source or not, are ready for showtime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's two parallel tracks, but just working very close with each other to a common goal. Okay.
Good connection, let's say.
Yeah. Now, can you tell me a little bit about? We'll be talking mostly about the sort of high-level picture. Can you tell me a little bit more about what Telefonica is doing? You mentioned Brazil, but what is the status? And I guess that virtualization will also help you put together the different operations in different countries. So that's really another advantage for you, right?
Yeah, well, you know, there was this commitment that was made by our management during the Mobile World Congress that we will become 1/3 of our network will become virtualized by 2017, right? If I remember well. No, this is the kind of thing I would not. 2016. Well, in 2 or 3 years' time, I don't know exactly. So there is we are moving in that direction. We are taking this. We are working for the global CTO unit in Telefonica, and we are trying to coordinate precisely the activities towards virtualization of our different business units. We have periodical meetings internally, trying to identify the use cases and trying to learn as well, not only to tell our business units what we see as feasible or desirable, but as well to collect their requirements and needs and where they see the strongest opportunities for going for virtualization. This is one thing. Second thing is that something that we have started this year is something that we call our NFV reference lab, in which what we are working is precisely in developing homogeneous infrastructure able to support NFV. And homogeneous means that it is homogeneous because it's orchestrated and controlled in a homogeneous way. But one of our commitments and one of our first results is precisely to make it multi-vendor, because otherwise we wouldn't doing nothing practically. Our idea, and we have already started, is to provide this common infrastructure is to run virtualized network functions from different vendors, test different orchestration suites from different vendors as well, see that they are able to interpret and generate a corpus of knowledge that we can share with our operations when they go for their RFPs and their purchase orders, etc. So they have a clear idea of which is really interpretable and really able to live to our expectations. And third, we have this pilot in Brazil that is our showcase so far that the technology is mature enough to become commercial.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you a very final question. You mentioned the need to have a multi-vendor environment. How is virtualization changing your relationship with the vendors?
This is, I would say, so far is early to say, because I mean we are big companies that are dealing with our normal vendors, are big companies as well. I must say they have reacted really promptly to the requirements for change, and they have really embraced the request of becoming more software-based, more virtual-based, more able to run on disparate hardware, and and as you can imagine, even open source. So far, I would say that the trust links we have with our major vendors are still there. And we don't foresee that this is going to change in the near future. But the interesting part is that we have managed as well to engage with smaller, independent, probably more agile in certain senses vendors that now are allowed to show how they can enhance what we have right now and enhance even what we get from our main vendors. And that is, I think, it's an extremely good opportunity for these small companies to become now and even directly useful for us, the operators. And the other way around as well is something that is a challenge for the major vendors to align with them. So, and this is one of our main goals when we started thinking about this, was precisely about accelerating the innovation cycle in network infrastructure. I would say that, well, probably it's not at the full speed yet, but this is starting to gain some speed.
Okay, Diego, well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I would like to remind our viewers that this is part of a report on NFV and its emerging ecosystem, and it's available on our website at www.sensafiliconsulting.com. Thank you very much. Thank you, Diego.
Thank you so much, Monica.